It was an ordinary summer afternoon in the small, serene town of Verona Hills. The streets hummed softly with the sounds of children's laughter spilling over from neighborhood parks, mingling with the distant hum of cicadas in the warm breeze. The day seemed unremarkable, save for its comforting predictability, the kind of rhythm people often take for granted. Sophia, a bright and spirited 14-year-old girl, had spent her morning sketching in her notebook by the window. Her family often teased her about the way she got lost in her own world, her sharp green eyes fixed on the lines she drew, her curls falling messily into her face. But today, the pull of adventure outweighed her usual habit of quiet creativity. She decided to meet her friends at the nearby park, a place they often gathered to play games and trade stories. "Don't forget to wear your helmet," her mother called as Sophia wheeled her bike to the edge of their driveway. Sophia turned with an impish grin. "I'll be careful, I promise," she said, her voice light and cheerful as always. The wind greeted her as she pedaled down the familiar path. Verona Hills was her world, a patchwork of suburban homes, tidy gardens, and stretches of open road that felt like freedom beneath her tires. With each turn of the pedals, she reveled in the simple joy of movement, the sun warm on her shoulders and the scent of freshly cut grass carried on the breeze. To her, the day was perfect. But perfection has a way of masking the unexpected. The intersection just beyond Maple Street was one Sophia had crossed hundreds of times. It was a quiet crossing, one with clear visibility, and she knew its rhythm by heart. As she approached, the light turned green, and she continued forward without hesitation. What she didn't notice was the dark sedan speeding from the opposite direction. The driver, distracted by the glowing screen of a phone resting on the dashboard, never saw the red light. The car tore through the intersection like a shadow, unseen until it was too late. The world fractured in an instant. Sophia didn't hear the screech of tires or the gasps of onlookers. There was no time for sound to register. The impact sent her body airborne, a blur of blue fabric and fragile limbs against the clear summer sky. She landed hard on the asphalt several feet away, her bike a mangled wreck beside her. The neighborhood's serene hum was replaced by chaos. Bystanders rushed to her side, their faces etched with horror. A man fumbled with his phone as he called for emergency services, his voice trembling as he tried to explain what had happened. A woman, her hands shaking, knelt beside Sophia, whispering prayers under her breath. Sophia lay still, her face pale and peaceful despite the violence of the crash. The world around her buzzed with urgency, but her body betrayed no signs of life. When the paramedics arrived, they worked with precision, their movements urgent yet methodical. "No pulse," one of them said grimly as another began chest compressions. They fought for her life with every tool and ounce of skill they had, but as the minutes stretched on, hope began to wane. Sophia's heart had stopped. Her parents arrived at the scene moments later, their faces pale with fear as they clung to each other, searching the crowd for answers. When they saw her lying motionless, the air seemed to leave their lungs. The ambulance sped away, leaving behind a street marked by silence and shock. For Sophia's parents, time stood still as they followed the flashing lights toward the hospital, desperate for any glimmer of hope. Inside the ambulance, the paramedics continued their relentless efforts. Defibrillator pads were applied. Adrenaline was administered. For over 10 minutes, Sophia's body remained lifeless, her heart silent against their determined attempts. But in that stillness, Sophia was no longer there. At this moment in the story, if you felt the weight of Sophia's journey so far, consider joining our community by subscribing to the channel. Together, we can explore the incredible, the spiritual, and the life-changing stories that bring hope and meaning to our world. Don't forget to like the video and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Your support helps us grow and spread these powerful messages. The hospital room buzzed with frantic energy as doctors and nurses worked tirelessly over Sophia's fragile frame. The beeping of machines and hurried instructions filled the sterile air, a dissonant symphony of desperation. Her parents sat in the waiting area, clutching each other tightly, their faces pale and their breaths shallow, as if breathing too deeply would shatter the fragile thread of hope they clung to. Time seemed to stretch unnaturally. Minutes felt like hours. Each one waited with the silence of the unknown. They whispered prayers, not knowing if anyone was listening, but unable to stop themselves. It was all they could do. They were utterly powerless, stranded in a moment that felt as though it might never end. But while the doctors and her parents remained anchored to the cold reality of that hospital, Sophia was somewhere else entirely. When the car had struck her, Sophia's body had been jolted with unimaginable force, and yet the pain she had anticipated never came. Instead, there was a sudden, profound stillness. For a fleeting moment, she could see herself lying on the ground, the twisted metal of her bike beside her. She watched as strangers gathered around, their faces etched with shock and fear. There was no sound, no urgency, only a strange calmness, as though time had folded in on itself. And then the world below her began to fade. Sophia felt herself being drawn upward, not in a physical sense, but as if her very essence was being carried away by an unseen current. At first, it was disorienting. She reached out, instinctively trying to hold onto something, anything, to anchor her to the world she knew. But there was nothing to grasp, only the sense of moving faster and faster toward an unknown destination. Her surroundings began to shift. The chaos of the accident, the panic of the paramedics, and the sterile sterility of the hospital room melted away, replaced by a warm and all-encompassing light. It wasn't blinding or harsh but soft, as though it carried with it an embrace more tender and complete than anything she had ever known. Sophia tried to speak, to call out for her parents, but no words came. She didn't need them. Somehow, she understood that they couldn't follow her here, not yet. A part of her wanted to resist, to fight against the pull, but another part, the deeper part, felt at peace. The light grew stronger, enveloping her completely, and with it came a sense of freedom that defied description. Every burden she had ever carried, every worry or fear that had ever weighed her down, seemed to dissolve. The pain she hadn't even realized she was holding onto faded into nothingness. She was no longer Sophia, the 14-year-old girl from Verona Hills. Here, in this place, she was simply herself. Pure, unencumbered, and whole. As the light surrounded her, it began to take on new dimensions. It wasn't just brightness. It was alive. It pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat, and within its warmth, Sophia could sense something, someone. The presence was vast and powerful, yet deeply personal, as though it had been waiting for her all along. It wasn't a stranger. It felt like coming home. She stood in the light, suspended in its embrace, and for the first time since the accident, Sophia felt no need to ask where she was or why she was there. The questions that had defined so much of her young life, questions about purpose, belonging, and the meaning of it all, simply ceased to exist in the presence of this overwhelming peace. But even as she basked in this tranquility, Sophia sensed that this was only the beginning. The light seemed to pulse with gentle insistence, as if beckoning her forward. There was more to see, more to understand, and though she didn't know what awaited her, she felt an unshakable certainty that whatever lay ahead would change her forever. The light surrounding Sophia grew brighter, yet it was never harsh or overwhelming. Instead, it seemed to cradle her, filling her with a warmth and love so profound that she felt it reverberate through her very being. The world she had left behind, the hospital room, the frantic faces of doctors, her parents' desperate prayers, faded completely from her consciousness. All that remained was this new, radiant reality. As her vision adjusted, Sophia realized she was no longer standing in emptiness. Around her, the light began to take form, coalescing into shapes and colors she had never seen before. It was as if she had stepped into a living masterpiece, a place where every hue carried its own melody, and every melody harmonized perfectly with the next. The air itself seemed alive, shimmering with a quiet vibrancy that made her heart swell with awe. Sophia moved forward, or at least she thought she did. There was no ground beneath her feet, no sky above her head, and yet she felt as though she was being guided gently toward something, or someone. The light ahead of her grew more concentrated, and within it, a figure began to emerge. At first, it was just a silhouette, radiant and indistinct. But as Sophia drew closer, the figure became clearer, and she gasped, though not from fear. Standing before her was a presence so luminous, so pure, that it was almost difficult to look at. Yet Sophia could not turn away. The figure radiated a love so overwhelming, so unconditional, that it felt as though it had been waiting for her all her life. The figure spoke, though no words passed its lips. Instead, the voice seemed to resonate directly within her, filling her mind and heart with a clarity she had never known. "You are not here by chance, Sophia," the voice said, its tone gentle but commanding. "There is something you must see." Before she could respond, the light around her shifted again. The radiant figure extended a hand, and as Sophia hesitated, she felt a sense of reassurance, so profound that it silenced every doubt. She reached out, her hand trembling, and the moment their fingers touched, the world around her dissolved into a cascade of light and sound. In an instant, she found herself standing in a place unlike anything she could have imagined. It was neither earth nor the heaven she had heard about in stories and sermons. It was something altogether different, a realm of perfect harmony, where every element seemed to sing with life. The ground beneath her feet was soft and cool, yet it shimmered like glass. Rivers of liquid light flowed gently through rolling fields, their surfaces reflecting colors she could not name. Trees with golden leaves stretched toward a sky that seemed to pulse with warmth and energy. Everywhere she looked, there was beauty, not the kind that merely pleases the eye, but the kind that nourishes the soul. Sophia marveled at the sights around her, but what struck her most was the overwhelming sense of peace. It was as though this place had been crafted from love itself, a love so complete and boundless that it made her want to weep with gratitude. Yet even in this perfect realm, she could feel a quiet urgency, a sense that her journey had a purpose. The luminous figure appeared beside her once more, its presence both comforting and awe-inspiring. "There is more for you to see," the voice said, and with a gentle gesture, the figure guided her gaze to the horizon. At first, all Sophia saw was the unbroken beauty of the landscape. But as she looked closer, she began to notice something. Small, flickering shadows appeared at the edges of her vision, disrupting the harmony of the scene. The shadows grew, spreading like cracks in a flawless surface, and with them came a sense of unease. Sophia turned to the figure, her voice trembling. "What is this? Why is it here?" The figure's expression remained calm, though its tone grew somber. "These are the choices of humanity, Sophia. The shadows are what happens when love is abandoned, when fear and division take root." As she watched, the cracks widened, and the shadows began to consume the light. Sophia's heart ached as she saw the devastation unfold before her. Forests burned, their vibrant greens reduced to ash. Rivers turned dark and sluggish, their once clear waters choked with filth. Cities crumbled, their skylines swallowed by smoke and flame. But amidst the chaos, Sophia caught glimpses of something else. Here and there, small pockets of light pushed back against the darkness. She saw people helping one another, rebuilding what had been lost. She saw acts of courage, kindness, and selflessness that shone like beacons in the night. The figure beside her spoke again, its voice filled with both sorrow and hope. "Even in the darkest times, light can prevail. But it requires choice, Sophia. It requires faith." Sophia felt a weight settle on her heart, the enormity of what she was being shown sinking in. The beauty of this realm, the harmony she had experienced, was not guaranteed. It was fragile, and its survival depended on the actions of those who still walked the earth. Before she could say anything, the vision began to shift again. The shadows receded, and the light returned, stronger and more vibrant than before. But the urgency remained, a quiet insistence that her journey was far from over. The vision shifted once more, and Sophia found herself standing on the edge of a great expanse. It was as if she were suspended among the stars, looking down upon the earth from an otherworldly vantage point. The planet glowed with an ethereal beauty, its oceans shimmering like molten sapphire, and its continents alive with vivid, pulsating light. For a moment, Sophia was overwhelmed by the sight, her heart swelling with awe at the intricate beauty of the world she had left behind. But as she gazed deeper, the perfection began to waver. Flashes of darkness began to creep across the surface of the earth, small at first, but growing rapidly. Fires blazed through vast forests, their orange tongues licking hungrily at the land. Cities fell into chaos, their lights dimming one by one, swallowed by floods, storms, and violence. The scenes moved faster, an unrelenting cascade of devastation that made Sophia's breath catch in her throat. "Why are you showing me this?" she whispered, her voice trembling with the weight of what she was witnessing. The figure reappeared beside her, its presence calm and steady despite the chaos unfolding below. "These are the consequences of humanity's choices," the voice said gently. "The earth is a reflection of what dwells within the hearts of its people. When fear and division take hold, the darkness spreads. But it is not too late." Sophia turned back to the vision, her chest tightening as the scenes became more vivid. She saw people arguing, their anger spilling over into violence. She saw greed driving decisions that left communities in ruin. She saw neglect, apathy, and exploitation laying waste to the natural world. It was as if every fracture in humanity's spirit had been magnified, its effects rippling across the earth. But then, amidst the destruction, she saw something else. Small sparks of light began to flicker within the darkness. She saw neighbors helping one another in times of need, strangers risking their lives to save others, and communities rebuilding after disasters. These moments of hope, though fleeting, burned brightly against the encroaching shadows. "Hope is never lost," the figure said, its voice filled with quiet strength. "Even in the darkest times, love and compassion can prevail. But the choice must be made, Sophia. The light cannot thrive without those who are willing to carry it." Sophia felt a stirring in her chest, a deep and unshakable sense of purpose. She understood now that the vision was not just a warning, it was a call to action. The Earth's fate was not set in stone. It was being written with every decision, every act of kindness or cruelty, every moment of fear or faith. "Your voice is needed, Sophia," the figure said, turning toward her with a gaze that seemed to pierce through her very soul. "You must carry this message to those who will listen.
Help them see what is at stake.
Help them choose the light." Sophia nodded, her resolve hardening despite the enormity of the task before her. She knew now that she had been given this experience for a reason. She didn't yet know how she would share what she had seen, but she understood that she couldn't remain silent. The future of the world, its beauty, its harmony, its very survival, depended on the choices of its people. And she had to help them see. As the vision began to fade, Sophia felt herself being pulled back toward the warmth and radiance of the light she had first entered. The figure remained with her, a silent reminder of the journey she had undertaken and the mission that now lay ahead. Before we continue Sophia's journey in the next chapter, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us your name and the city you're watching from in the comments below so we can send you a special shout out in our next video. Don't forget to like the video. It helps us grow our community and share these inspiring stories with more people. We can't wait to hear from you. As the brilliance of the light faded, Sophia found herself standing once more in the surreal realm that seemed to exist between the physical and the eternal. Though the warmth of the figure's presence still enveloped her, the urgency in the air was undeniable. Every detail of what she had just witnessed weighed heavily on her heart, like a burden too great for a girl of her age to carry. And yet, she felt no fear, only a quiet determination, a certainty that her life had been forever changed. The luminous figure stood beside her, silent and watchful. Sophia turned to it, her voice trembling with emotion. "How can I do this? How can I make them understand?" The figure regarded her with a gaze that was both gentle and piercing, as though it could see every corner of her soul. "You are not alone," it said, its voice resonating with a calm power. "Your words will carry the truth, but it is their choice to listen. Your mission is not to convince, but to shine a light where there is darkness. Truth has a way of finding those who seek it." Sophia absorbed the words, their meaning unfolding in her mind like a seed taking root. She thought of the scenes she had witnessed, the destruction, the pain, but also the glimpses of hope and resilience. She realized that while the weight of the task ahead was immense, it was not hopeless. It was a call to awaken the hearts of others, to inspire them to choose love over fear, unity over division. "Will they believe me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The figure's expression softened. "Some will and some will not. But belief is not your responsibility. The truth you carry will resonate with those who are ready to hear it." As the figure spoke, the air around them began to shimmer, and Sophia realized that the realm itself seemed to be responding to their conversation. Colors swirled and danced like living brushstrokes on an infinite canvas, and she felt a surge of energy course through her. It was as if the very fabric of this place was alive with purpose, urging her forward. Sophia's mind filled with questions, but before she could voice them, the figure raised a hand, and the swirling colors around them coalesced into a single image. It was Earth, suspended in the void, its surface aglow with light and shadow. She could see the delicate balance of beauty and chaos, the fragile harmony that could so easily tip in either direction. "There is still time," the figure said, its tone both hopeful and resolute. "Time for humanity to choose. But the window is not infinite." Sophia felt a pang of urgency as the words sank in. She thought of her family, her friends, the life she had so abruptly left behind. She wondered if they could ever understand what she had seen, if they would believe her when she tried to share the truth. But even as doubt threatened to creep in, the figure's presence seemed to steady her, filling her with a quiet strength. "You have seen what is possible," it said. "Now, you must return and carry the message. The journey will not be easy, but you will not walk it alone." Sophia nodded, her resolve growing stronger with every passing moment. She didn't know what awaited her on the other side, but she knew she had to try. The weight of the mission was immense, but it was also liberating. For the first time in her life, she felt a sense of purpose that went beyond herself, beyond the small, everyday worries that had once consumed her. The figure extended its hand once more, and Sophia hesitated only for a moment before taking it. As their fingers touched, a surge of warmth and light washed over her, and she felt herself being drawn back through the realms she had traveled. The vibrant colors faded, replaced by the sterile whites and blues of the hospital room. She opened her eyes to the sound of her mother's voice, broken with sobs of relief. Her father's hands trembled as they clutched hers, their warmth grounding her in the reality she had returned to. The beeping of machines and the hum of hospital equipment filled the air, but Sophia's mind was elsewhere, on the vision she had witnessed, the mission she had been given. As the days passed, Sophia began to recover physically, but her heart and mind were irrevocably changed. She spent hours replaying the vision, trying to capture every detail, every word. She knew she couldn't keep it to herself, but she also understood the challenge of sharing something so extraordinary in a world that often dismissed the unseen. Sophia's return to the physical world was a jarring contrast to the transcendent realm she had just left. The sterile hospital room felt cold and harsh, its fluorescent lights a far cry from the warm, radiant glow of the otherworldly place she had been. Yet as her senses reawakened, she was filled with a clarity and resolve unlike anything she had ever known. The vision, the mission, the message, it was all seared into her memory, as vivid and unshakable as the moment it had first been revealed to her. Her parents hovered by her bedside, their faces a mixture of relief and disbelief. They held her hands tightly, as if afraid she might slip away again, their tears of joy falling freely as they thanked the doctors and nurses who had fought to bring her back. But Sophia knew that what had happened was beyond the skill of medicine. It was something miraculous, something divine. The days that followed were a whirlwind of recovery and reflection. Physically, she was healing. The bruises and fractures from the accident would fade with time, but the transformation within her was far deeper, impossible to measure. She lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying the visions she had seen. The weight of what she had been shown pressed heavily on her chest, a constant reminder that her life was no longer her own. She thought often of the luminous figure and its final words to her: "The journey will not be easy, but you will not walk it alone." At first, the enormity of the task seemed overwhelming. How could a 14-year-old girl carry a message so profound, so vital? How could she make people see what she had seen, understand what she had come to know so deeply? The first step, she realized, was sharing her story with her parents. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the hospital room was bathed in a soft, golden light, she asked them to sit with her. Her voice was steady, though her heart pounded in her chest as she began to speak. "I have to tell you something," she said, her eyes meeting theirs. "It's about what happened while I was gone." Her parents exchanged a glance, their expressions a mix of concern and curiosity. They listened intently as Sophia recounted everything: the light, the realm, the figure, the visions of Earth, and the mission she had been given. She spoke with a conviction that surprised even herself, the words flowing as though they were not her own, but something entrusted to her. Her mother's eyes filled with tears as she listened, and her father's brow furrowed deeply. When she finished, there was a long silence. Finally, her mother reached out and cupped Sophia's face in her hands. "I don't fully understand," she said softly, "but I believe you. I believe something extraordinary happened to you." Her father nodded, though his expression remained serious. "If this is true, Sophia, then it's a lot to carry. Are you sure you're ready for this?" Sophia hesitated, the weight of his words sinking in. But then she thought of the light, the figure's steady gaze, and the quiet strength it had instilled in her. She nodded firmly. "I have to be." As her story began to spread beyond the walls of the hospital, Sophia encountered a mix of reactions. Some were moved by her words, their hearts stirred by the vividness of her account. Others were skeptical, dismissing her experience as a hallucination or a product of her trauma. But Sophia wasn't deterred. She had seen too much, felt too much, to be silenced by doubt. She began to write down everything she could remember, filling pages with descriptions of the radiant realm, the visions of Earth's future, and the figure's messages. Each word felt like an offering, a way to preserve the truth and share it with the world. Sophia knew that her journey was just beginning, and that it would be fraught with challenges. But she also knew that she wasn't alone. The light she had carried back with her was a constant source of strength, a reminder of the hope that still burned brightly, even in the darkest moments. If Sophia's journey resonates with you, consider joining our community by subscribing to the channel. We don't earn any money from this. We do it because we believe in sharing stories that inspire, uplift, and bring hope. Your like and subscription would mean the world to us. It helps us grow and reach more people with these powerful messages. Thank you for being part of this journey. Sophia's life after the accident was anything but ordinary. She had returned to her small town, her familiar home, and her routine, but everything felt different. The world she had once seen as static and predictable now seemed alive with possibilities, and every moment carried a weight she couldn't ignore. Word of her story spread quickly. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers came to hear about the vision she had seen and the message she had carried back. Some approached her with open hearts, eager to understand what had happened. Others met her with skepticism, their questions often veiled with doubt. Sophia welcomed both reactions. She knew her role wasn't to convince, it was to share the truth, no matter how it was received. Her visions had given her a clear understanding of the stakes. Humanity was standing at a crossroads. The choices people made every day, whether to act out of fear or love, to sow division or unity, were shaping the future in real time. The darkness she had seen creeping across the earth was not inevitable. It could be pushed back by the light of compassion, courage, and faith. But Sophia also knew that this light couldn't shine on its own. It needed to be carried, nurtured, and shared. It needed people to rise above their fears and doubts, to choose hope even when it seemed impossible. And so, she began her mission. She spoke at schools and churches, her words filled with the urgency of her vision but tempered with the hope she had carried back. She wrote letters, shared her story online, and connected with others who had experienced their own brushes with the divine. Everywhere she went, she carried the light she had found in that otherworldly realm, sharing it with anyone who would listen. But as much as Sophia felt driven to spread her message, she also understood the importance of action. She began volunteering in her community, helping to rebuild homes after storms, planting trees in parks, and lending a hand wherever it was needed. These small acts of kindness, she believed, were just as vital as her words. They were living proof that the light could thrive, even in the darkest places. The memories of her time in the radiant realm never faded. They remained vivid, a constant reminder of the beauty that was possible when humanity chose love over fear. And though the weight of her mission was heavy, Sophia found strength in the knowledge that she wasn't alone. The same light that had guided her in that realm was still with her, a steady presence that filled her with peace even in the face of challenges. As the years passed, Sophia's message began to ripple outward. People she had never met wrote to her, sharing how her story had inspired them to make changes in their own lives. Communities began to come together, their divisions softened by a shared desire to create a brighter future. And though the darkness still lingered, Sophia saw more and more sparks of light pushing it back. In the end, Sophia understood that her mission wasn't just about sharing her vision, it was about igniting a movement. It was about reminding people of their own power to shape the world, to choose hope, and to carry the light forward. Thank you for joining us on Sophia's journey. If her story moved you, we'd love for you to become part of our community by subscribing to the channel. Your support means everything to us, and it helps us continue to share stories that inspire and uplift. And before you go, there's something even more special waiting for you. Our next video will reveal something truly life-changing. Just click the video on your screen to continue the journey. We promise it will be worth it.